guys, welcome to part 2 of this video. This is where I take the mold off and see if it turned out okay. We're going to see how I go putting that crack together, and you will hear the very first sounds that violin made. Also, I did actually film this intro after the client received his instrument back, so I'll show you his email that he wrote to me after he received his violin back, which is really cool. I think you'll like it. Anyway, back to the workshop. So I can finally take a look and see how this counter mold looks. I'm excited. I always love doing counter molds. There's just something magical about it. Okay, so here it is. It's got a couple of cracks, like folds in it from the glad wrap, so I'm gonna have to take care of that. But the big problem, the big area that I'll be working on is the area, like I'll actually modify the area just in there where you can see that it's got like a dent in it. Or in this case, it's obviously on the counter mold, it's the opposite, it's raised. So that's the first thing I will do. I'll adjust that. I may just quickly fill these folds first. So I'm just going to let that harden. It shouldn't take long actually, because it's a sort of works with a two-part, so they react. It's kind of, yeah, it's already hardening now. All right, I'll let that dry and then I will reshape it. Then I can start working on this area. I just wanted to take that impression before I do any work at all on this area, so I can make sure I get it right. But of course, you know, this whole area is way too flat, so I'm going to have to reshape it anyway. Alright, so just going to mark in the area. Yeah, so I'm just marking in the area that's slightly flattened. So I've got that marked in. Now I have to just very carefully basically recreate the arching the way it was before. So that's going to take me just a little while. I'll get started. I'll use some chisel. Scrape this area back a bit. My goal here is to have this area as even as possible. So when I put it on the instrument and finally, so I'll be taking off this patch that has actually warped the top plate. Once that's off, I want to just press it back into that shape, and then I'll put a new patch onto just this little area here, and that will take care of this deformation. Alright, I think the time has come for me to cut this. So I have to be very careful because I only want to remove the patch, not any original timber. It looks to me like they literally just stuck the patch straight over the top of the way the top plate was in the first place. So that's going to make it a lot easier for me to do the replacement patch here. But I've just wet that a little bit to soak off the old glue. I'll put some hot water on it and see if it releases. Yeah, I'll have to soak that a little bit more to get all that off. So I will use a piece of cotton wool and soak that area. That will get that soaking for a bit. Alright, I'll leave that. Okay, so I soaked the area for a while. I was able to remove a lot of the timber that was there. So I'm just going to give this a bit of a clean, and then I will press it into the mold. Very exciting stuff. So I'm using some hot water now to just clean the glue off the area. Now I'm just literally going to use, I've already reshaped this mold. Just going to wrap it in glad wrap because I don't want the mold to stick. That would be not very desirable. There we go. Now I'm going to clamp this area down. Okay, now I'm actually going to heat this area up a little bit. I'm going to have to be super careful with this. Got my little heat gun, but yeah, I'm going to have to play it very carefully. I'm continually feeling how warm this is, because there's no way I want to overheat this. That would be absolutely devastating. I'm literally going to leave this, let this settle in and maybe dry out overnight. And then tomorrow I'll take another look and see how everything's looking. Okay, I've left this for quite some time. I've had a huge weekend, a lot of stuff happening. You'll see I made a great video, a couple of great videos. Anyway, I'm going to take this out and have a look how it all looks. It's looking so much better. Still has a tiny bit of a dip. I may not be able to get rid of every little aspect of the dip, but that is so much better already. Okay, so the next thing I'll have to do is I'll just have to glue this section of crack here. I'll give it a bit of a clean and I'll glue that. Then I can reinforce it and then I can finally close the top plate. So what I'll do is I'll just get a bit of cotton wool and just soak the crack. So I'm going to leave that soak for a while. In the meantime, I'll clean my desk and do some of my Monday morning stuff. Okay, so that crack has actually soaked for a while. So I am going to give that a bit of a clean. When I finish cleaning, I might soak it with some peroxide still. I have to have a look, just see how it all works out. I don't think I actually need peroxide. So now I've cleaned it up, I will just clamp it back into the mold. Let it dry. I'm actually wondering whether I should just glue it. To glue it, I'm going to have to modify this mold just a tiny bit. This will be interesting. Okay. Right, I'm literally going to cut this corner out here because then I can put something inside the F-hole to press the crack together. I think that's going to be the neatest way for me to glue that crack. And I'm going to glue it while it's actually still quite wet, because I think that way I will have the cleanest bond in the end, because the wood fibers are a little bit loose and wet. I'll have to heat the whole area up first so the glue will actually glue properly and dry okay. Okay, so I just cut this out. It still gives, like, it still has the mold over the important spot, but I'll be able to put an old soundpost in here to force the crack together. So I'll heat this area up first of all. I got my trusty heat gun. Oh yeah, that's really nice and warm now. Okay, I've got to get some glue in there. It's still really nice and warm, this area, so that is good. This area, like, it was quite tricky to get the glue on and everything, so I may not have filmed it correctly because I just had to concentrate on getting this right. But what I did was I heated up the crack, or that whole area. I rubbed glue into it, then I loosely put the counter mold back on using at least just one clamp. Then I tighten in like an old soundpost to jam the crack together, and then I tighten the clamps properly. I don't over tighten them, so there's still a looseness to them, because you want it to be pressed into the mold, but you don't want to squash the timber fibers. Anyway, that just has to dry now till tomorrow. Alright, I better keep going on this violin. It actually needs to be finished really soon. So I'll take the, so I'm going to take these clamps off. I've kind of left it a bit long, but I had some really, I was really busy doing some work. So let's have a look how it turned out. So that's looking definitely, you can still see a tiny bit of a line, but let's have a look, close-up look. But I'm definitely a lot happier with it than it was before. So now I just have to make a new piece for in here, glue that on, and then I've got to get this violin closed really soon, because the player really needs this violin back. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Now I've got to find a piece of wood to fit there. And I want to try and find something that's fairly matching, maybe not as matching to this piece as to the other piece, but yeah, just make sure it all works well. Okay, so here is a piece of spruce that is at least 50 years old. So I'm going to fit that to here. So I'm just chalk fitting this piece to here. It's quite a long, lengthy process, so I won't show you the whole thing. So the important thing is that the piece needs to fit really well. Okay, so I've fitted this for a while. I'm very happy with the way it's fitting. I'm just going to adjust it to the shape of the previous patch as well. Super happy with that. So next step will be gluing that patch on. Just trying to figure out whether to use like one bigger clamp or multiple smaller clamps. I'll probably use two slightly bigger clamps. Okay, I'm ready to glue this. Put two clamps on. Alright, I'm just going to leave this overnight because tomorrow I want to finish this off and get the top plate closed. So the glue's dried for a while now and I've taken the other clamp off. I'm just going to take this clamp off and let's have a look how it all turned out. You know, I'm actually very pleased with that. It's so much better. That's got the just got that extra bit, so my next job will be just cutting that back. So I'm just going to do a final sand of this little area here. So I'm only sanding the patch itself, not the top plate around it. Quite pleased with the way my little, I mean you can see it because it's brand new timber, but I'm very happy with the way that's turned out. Also the outside here has got a nice shape again and it is really reinforced, so it's actually very solid. So I want to get this violin closed today, so I'm going to get the rest of the body and just see what it's going to take for me to close the violin. Okay, so here's the rest of the body. I'm just having a quick check over everything, make sure I'm happy with that. Now I have to check that everything fits together perfectly. Yep, that's all looking beautiful. Alright, let's get the clamps out. And finally I get to glue together this violin. I'm kind of excited. So I'm going to clean up my workbench just a little bit more. I did do a preliminary clean this morning. This can go in the bin. That is past its use by date. Alright, here we go. Are we ready? Hi, this is Olaf from the future, and in this next bit something really silly happened. I turned the camera off and stopped filming thinking I had turned it on. But luckily I have another violin I am putting together. I've been working on this top plate, and so I'm just going to show you how I do it on this instrument. This is the back. On this one the neck is still fully intact, but you can still see how I glue the instrument together. Okay, so I have my glue is bubbling away in the corner here. I've got my clamps ready, and I'm just going to quickly glue this violin up. So I'm putting the glue on, and I try and do this very quickly. Other side as well, and now I'm putting the glue on just a couple of bits here, just to make sure that it all glues. Okay, alrighty. Okay, so I'm going to close this up. I'll put it together. I always put on the middle, the C-bouts first, which is in the middle here, and I may stop talking because I have to concentrate. I have to do this very quickly, but because this kind of glue, being hide glue that has been used for thousands of years, actually needs cools down very quickly, and instead of being able to glue, it turns to jelly. So I just have to move fairly quickly in gluing this instrument up. Yeah, I always do the C-bouts first because that's, you know, if the middle is right, then I can match the top and the bottom quite easily as well. So I would always recommend that if you are a violin maker or learning to become a violin maker. When you're doing a repair, you can see a line in the varnish where the instrument's been varnished and where it hasn't. So you can clearly see where to glue an instrument. So it's important to get that matching 100% right, because you know you want to, when you do repairs, you want to have as little impact on the instrument as earthly possible. You want to make sure that there's very little to retouch at the end and that the top plate or the back matches really neatly. Alrighty, I'm nearly done here. Back to the old instrument. Okay, I get the feeling I may have forgotten to press the button here. I've just glued up the top plate. I had to move really quickly, and so sometimes it's a bit hard when I'm doing videos because I have so many things going on. Anyway, I put glue on the surfaces, I closed the surfaces, and then I put all these clamps on, and that has to clamp like that for a bunch of hours, usually at least 4 or 5 hours or something like that. It's just about lunchtime now. That'll have to glue right into the evening, and I'll probably won't work on it until tomorrow. But that's pretty exciting because tomorrow I can start like doing some retouching on the top plate and also just doing some work on the neck already. Okay, so I finished gluing up the violin. Yeah, so it's dried, it's the next day. So I'm just going to take the clamps off and see how this has all come together. Let's have a look how this has all come together. Oh, that crack looks fabulous. All the other cracks are closed now, which was the big worry of the violinist. All the open cracks, but that is looking phenomenal. It's really come together nicely. Beautiful. I think he's going to totally love it. I mean, this is a pretty major repair. So the violin's all closed, and my next job will be filling all the cracks with a varnish filler. So that's going to be my next step, and I'll glue back the saddle here. There's a tiny bit of purfling that I want to replace, and just little bits and pieces just to get everything ready, especially up here so I can put the neck in. So I want to get very close to getting this finished today. I can just glue that on now. So this corner here, I've done the purfling. I had to put a tiny corner on here and a little bit of timber on there. Now I have to get into the filling, like the time's come to just fill all the varnish where the cracks were. Then it'll be retouching time. We're getting very close to finishing this violin, which is great. Also, while I'm here, I'm going to fit the fingerboard back onto the neck. I'll prepare the base of the neck here, but also this is quite crooked, so I want to make sure that it's all straight. So I'll probably fit a small piece just underneath as well. Okay, so I'm fitting a small piece underneath here. What's amazing is if you look at the way the neck has been lengthened, I actually think that's a genius way of doing it. You know, you could actually keep, like if you've got an antique, like a Baroque violin, you could actually keep the neck, the original neck, and just add a little bit that way. That's just amazing. I mean, some of the other problems you'll probably have is the neck might be too thin on Baroque violins, but anyway, I'm just so impressed. Alright, I've fitted this piece under here, so I'm going to glue that now. I'm going to put a tiny bit of water on the back so the piece of wood doesn't bend in one direction. That's just got to glue for 4 to 6 hours. So it's mid-morning now, so that'll be ready this evening. And then I'm just gonna like just adjust the edge here, and then I can put the fingerboard on as well. This is really exciting. We're getting very close to putting this whole instrument together. I am going to put some varnish on these cracks now, some filler varnish, and then I can just leave it sit for a while. Okay, so this is my filling varnish. I'm just gonna fill a lot of these cracks. So each crack that is glued leaves just this tiny hairline indent, and so that needs to be filled with this filling varnish, so that when the instrument's finally finished and polished, that you don't have these like crack marks through the whole instrument. Okay, so I just have to let this dry, probably let it dry for half a day or so, and then I'll do some retouching because I'm keen especially to get the neck back in, so I have to retouch this area here because I won't be able to polish under here afterwards. But anyway, for now I'm going to leave that dry, so I'll be back sort of late in the afternoon. Okay, so this is already looking so much better. I'm gonna do some more retouching on that today. I have just taken the clamp off this, so I'm just gonna clean up this end here, and as soon as I've done that, I'm actually gonna glue on the fingerboard, because then I'll be ready to refit the neck. I'm very keen to refit the neck later today. The fingerboard doesn't need to glue for very long, so that should be fine. But what I do have to do, if I'm going to do that, I have to finish retouching just up around here, and I have to finish polishing under the fingerboard, because obviously it's really hard to do afterwards. But yeah, I love retouching. It's a lot of fun. You make things disappear. Yeah, so that's actually really exciting. I'll just plane the end of this and make it all matching. Alright, I want to like rework the edges just a little bit as well. It just saves me doing that afterwards. Just trying to get very close to how the final thing is going to look. It's just easier to do without the fingerboard on there. Getting very close to putting on the fingerboard. Okay, I'm ready to glue on the fingerboard. I'm just going to get my clamps. Got my glue ready back here. Put glue on. I'm going to just put it on the other side as well, and then just glue it on. Here we go. Have to make sure that the fingerboard is totally matching to the way it was glued on before, so there's no little step just on the side of the fingerboard and the neck. Perfect, that's all glued on now. So I'm just going to let that dry. I'll do a bit more retouching here while that's happening, and try and get this side of the instrument ready so I can fit the neck this afternoon. The fingerboard's glued onto this neck, and I have this all prepared, ready to fit the neck. So what I have to do here is I have to fit the neck, but I have to fit it in deeper than it had been fitted in the past, because it was fitted in very shallow in this direction. So I'm going to fit it in a bit deeper, and that will also make sure that the neck length will be totally correct. Yeah, I'm going to mark this spot exactly where the neck has to be fitted to. The measure is 130 millimeters. That means that the edge of the top plate has to be at 130 millimeters. So I'll mark that in. Okay, so I have to firstly cut this mortise a little bit deeper. Someone had actually filled out this mortise at some point, so I don't feel bad cutting it a little bit deeper, because this is not original timber I'm cutting here. Just got to adjust the sides of this. The other thing I have to measure is the actual depth that the neck protrudes, like how much the neck protrudes out of the top plate, which should be around 6 mm. Okay, it's all getting closer. Yeah, just continuing to fit the neck, so I've got to make sure it's straight, and I've got to make sure that I get the height right. Just got to fit the bottom of the neck. Just adjusting it with this beautiful little plane. Okay, so the grain on the here is called end grain. So I'm just going to put a bit of glue on the end grain because it soaks up the glue, and that might just not make it stick as well. And I kind of have to let that dry and soak in now. It's kind of staying there quite well, which is good. So I'm going to leave this aside, and I'm going to go grab some dinner, and afterwards I'm going to come back and glue this. Alright, I've let this dry. I have let all this dry, and now I have to work incredibly fast. So I'll be putting glue on here, glue on there, and then putting the two together. And it's all going to happen very quickly. That's basically it. That's done. So now I just have to let this dry. I've just put on an extra clamp as well, so that can just dry like this overnight. Tomorrow will be the exciting day where I get to, finish retouching, playing the fingerboard, maybe start making a bridge and things like that. So see you guys tomorrow. Good morning. It is the next day. Just drinking my morning coffee. The neck glued overnight, so I can take the clamps off and have a look how it all turned out. It's always a bit of an exciting and slightly scary moment. Let's have a look. Yep, I'm very pleased with that. I'm just in the process of planing some other fingerboards. So I may as well just plane this fingerboard at the same time and get that out of the way. Plane plenty of fingerboards, so I'm not going to show you through that process. I'd rather show you how I'm going to adjust the back of the neck here and things like that. I've got a bit of a swollen eye, don't worry about it, it's nothing bad. It's just going to dry, and the next step will be just adjusting this, like carving this back, making it all neat. Then I'm going to give the whole instrument a bit of a clean over, make sure that it's all ready for polishing. Okay, now what I have to do is I've planed the fingerboard, I have glued on the nut, and now I just have to cut back the timber around the button here at the back of the instrument. So I'll just do that. So I have to be trying to be as careful as possible not to cut too much into the neck itself. It's not all original timber anyway. I know the butt is not original timber, but still, try and be as careful as possible. Okay, that's very close to being the way I want it to look. I'm going to do a little bit of sanding here. I'm using some very fine sandpaper, and I kind of wet the timber a bit. I've just hung that up, and so I've just got to wait for it to dry. Okay, so I've been sanding this area and just wetting it and sanding it. So now I'm just going to put a little bit of a stain on there. Alright, this is exciting. I love getting colour on instruments because they start looking so much more finished. Okay, here we go. So I'm using like an oil-based colour, yes, to make it look very much like the original. It's coming along really nicely. I'm going to leave that dry overnight, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so I'm going to put some varnish on the foot of the neck. Fantastic, and then I'm going to just do a bit more retouching on some of these cracks here. Got to make sure that the colours mixed right. Using my tiny rigger again. So I think the rigger, it's named because in paintings you can copy like masts and bits of rope on ships. It's a very, very fine and long brush. So the important thing when you're retouching is to make sure your brushes are pointy enough. It's actually quite tricky to keep the brushes pointy, and I use gum arabic for that, and it kind of just sticks. You can see it sticks the top of the brushes together. The other thing with retouching is, because it's very hard to fully cover a spot and get the color 100% right, and sometimes it's about working with a blemish that's already on the top plate and very slightly accentuating it across the bit that you repaired to draw your eye away from the repair. But yeah, one of the hardest thing is finding a fine enough brush and making sure that it stays pointy, so that you literally only put varnish onto the areas that you need to be putting varnish on and not next to it. That is super, super tricky. But it's also this part of the whole restoration process is a whole lot of fun, because you know, it's actually where, you know, after you've done a whole big repair, it's actually where the repair just disappears and the instrument, the way it's supposed to look, starts coming out again. So the trick is to really make your repair just not show up at all. You just want it to be gone by the time you finish retouching. Alright, so now I've just got to put a little bit of clear varnish over those areas. I'm going to have to let that dry now, and then I'll keep retouching. I'll also be retouching this area around here. Just got to put some more clear varnish there first. Alright, I'll do a bit of retouching just on the neck here now, the foot of the neck. So some of the retouching has dried, and I am going to get a bridge ready. So I want to fit the bridge and mark the top, because then I can keep working on the bridge and get everything ready. Once I've polished the top plate, the scroll, and down here, I can actually put the strings on the instrument and allow the instrument to settle into, you know, settle into the new strings, and yeah, so that's pretty important. And then I'll do the rest of the polish once the strings are on there. There won't be much more to do afterwards, but just want to get, you know, get further. So I just fitted the bridge, and now I'm going to mark in the string height. There we go, string height marked. I'm going to keep carving this bridge until it's finished, and I'll show you the finished product. There we go. I'm very happy with that bridge. So I'm going to go on a lunch break now, and this afternoon it'll be polishing the top plate and getting everything ready for the strings. Okay, I've done a lot of prep, put some varnish on, so now it's time for me to do some polishing and really start getting everything, like just pulling everything together and making the instrument look beautiful and look like nothing ever happened, except that the instrument looks a whole lot better and is better protected. I'm going to do some polishing on here, so I do like a French polish. I'm really pleased with the way it's coming together. Yeah, it's a beautiful violin. Yeah, it's really getting there. It's beautiful. I had hoped to put the strings on today, but don't think it'll happen today, but it should happen tomorrow. I've let that dry for a bit, and I'm just going to do another quick sand over with very, very fine sandpaper, and then I will do one more polish on the top plate, and then I'll just let it rest overnight. Alright, so I am going to let this dry overnight and keep working on it tomorrow. I'm really keen to get the strings on this violin, so hopefully I'll be able to do that tomorrow afternoon sometime. Alright, see you tomorrow. Good morning. So next morning, just taking a look over how this is all looking. So what I want to do today is I just want to give the area a sand, very, very, very fine sandpaper, and then just repolish some more. I'm very keen to get the strings on today. So I want to get the scroll polished as well and down the bottom here so that I can get the strings on. The rest of the instrument I can finish polishing at the end, but I'll probably give it one polish over as well. So first of all, just a bit of sandpaper. It's just really starting to look amazing. Very pleased with how everything's coming together. We're going to go to the markets this morning. It's a weekend, so I'm off to the markets and let this dry, and hopefully when I come back I can put the strings on. Alright, so it's evening. I am going to put the strings on, but there's just a couple of things I want to do. Just want to give everything a very quick polish over and just lower the strings at the nut here. Also, the nut spacing is a little wide, so I want to narrow that. It's 17 millimeters and I want to narrow it down to 16. So time to put the end pin in and the pegs. Of course I have to put peg paste on the pegs as well. Just service them, make sure they work nicely. They seem to fit well though, so. That's fantastic. I've got the strings on. I am literally going to let this sit overnight and just settle in. Very happy getting those strings on. Very, very happy indeed. Oh, everything's a good height and very pleased. Alright, I'll see you guys in the morning. Okay, so today's the day I'm doing all the finishing touches on the violin. Got the strings on. I'm just about to put on the chin rest. I'm going to do a bit more polishing. I'll try out the instrument, you know, optimize the sound, make sure everything's perfect, make sure the string height's settling in well, and just generally get everything right. It's an exciting day. It's just so good when you can actually play a violin. Okay, I'm gonna try the violin now. Whoa, it's got this really deep, rich sound, like it's almost viola-esque. It's wow, that is very deep and rich. Makes you very pleased. I mean, it's a kind of character this it suits the German. You know, the German high arching quite often has that really rich and loud tone, and it's perfect for a hobby player, so that's really lovely. I was going to send the violin today, but I think I might just hold on to it for one more day and just let it settle in a little bit more. Just want to make 100% sure that I'm happy. A couple of tiny things that I just want to keep an eye on. Maybe just do a little bit more polishing. There's a couple of dull spots, but I'm generally very happy with the way everything's turned out. You can see the crack that was here is looking way better. Makes you almost struggling to see it. Yes, I'm super pleased. Hopefully the player will like it too. Also had to do a couple of bow repairs, which I've done for him, and yeah, I'll be sending the violin off. Yeah, it's a beautiful old German violin, just really nicely made. I'm really looking forward to hearing how he goes playing it. It's early, I'd say early 1800s, maybe very late 1700s. It's kind of made in that style, but it's just stunning. And look how beautiful the wood is cut on the slab, which means that if you've got the round stem and you turn it this way, it's just been cut up this way. Normally a lot of violin timbers cut like a cake slice, so when you got the stem, you just cut up slices of cake out of it, but this is cut differently. Anyway, so that's the beautiful old German violin that I restored. I hope you like it. I hope you like the process. It sounds amazing. It has that really deep and rich sound. The violin's all packed up and ready to go. Okay, so the player received his violin and he absolutely loved it. I'll read you some of the email and I'll tell you a little bit about it. I don't want to read the whole email. Hi Olaf and Coralie. I received the violin safely yesterday and was able to play it last night when I got home. I had previously taken the violin to a few places in Sydney and all were too nervous to do any substantial repair to it. Wow. And that made him nervous as well. I didn't want them to mess with the tone because he bought the instrument 20 years ago because of the tone. However, playing it once again last night, I was astonished. It has never sounded so good. It makes me a little sad that over the last 20 years, it's never been at its full potential, and it has taken until now to get there. And then he talks about all the attention to detail, that he really appreciates the attention to detail that I put in there, to the string heights, the ease of tuning pegs, the fine tuner, and the varnish, height of the strings. Oh, and he hadn't realized how much the height of the strings actually damaged his fingers by having to press so hard. The ease with which I could play last night was an eye-opener. I love getting these emails. I really appreciate all the work and the high standard of care. He's super grateful. And he feels, here we are, and I'm very grateful that I get to be the custodian of this violin and pass it on to the next generation in better condition than I found it. This will be in large part due to the expert repairs you've done. So that's exciting. He's also excited about this video. Hope you're enjoying your violin. So there you go. So for a long time, not everything had been 100% right on the instrument, and you can see how important it is. Having a good instrument, having it well set up is so important for your playing. It just makes life so much easier, makes playing so much more fun. I pay a lot of attention with all my instruments. I make sure that everything's right. This is one of my beautiful instruments. It's not one that I made, but it's one that I designed, and I have makers make it for me, and it's actually affordable. But I make sure that the setup is 100% on all my instruments because I know how much of a difference that actually makes to the player. It just makes playing so much more fun. And a lot of players I know have been playing for a while, or they're taking up instruments a little bit later. And why bother with something cheap? Like, if you have the means to get the instrument working at its best, then, you know, get the best possible instrument. There's no need to, don't need to buy the really cheap instrument. Just get something that's decent, that works well for you. I designed the instruments like the Pierre Lamont and the Pierre Lamont Master instruments to be a really nice entry-level instrument that's just a really good quality. You don't need to buy the really cheap instrument, unless of course that's all you can afford. Then you buy the best possible instrument for the least amount of money, put good strings on it, and make sure that the string heights and everything's right. But you can watch, like I did a video on doing up a cheap violin and actually getting it working okay. Like, it's never going to be at that kind of level, but it'll be playable, and you'll still be able to have fun with an instrument if you don't have that budget. But how good is it to have an instrument really working at its best? It just makes life so much easier. Anyway, hit the like button if you like this video. I'm going to do others like this. Subscribe to my channel. You need to also hit the little bell. Then you'll find out every time I post a new video. keep making beautiful music, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.